We have to talk about the border. We've had some good conversations on this show about immigration in this country, and there's a lot more to happen in the future. We just have to acknowledge what's going on right now. The Biden administration for a long time was preventing people from seeing what was going on in these facilities, and now that we have gotten our first looks into them, they are as horrifying as you can imagine.
Yeah, 1 second. This is Ted Cruz at a detention facility in Donna, Texas.
Flying Ted.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a truly horrific bit of video because it's two people asking for dignity that aren't seeking dignity for these people. Here is that clip.
Please respect. Please give dignity to the people. Please give dignity to the people.
So you work for the commissioner, your senior advisor. You were hired 2 weeks ago, and you're instructed to ask us to not have any pictures taken here.
Please respect the people.
Because the political leadership at DHS does not want the American people to know it.
Please respect the rules,
You keep
sir.
standing in front of the pictures, so
Please
you don't want the
respect the
pictures taken. The rules are arbitrary, and
Please
they're designed to keep the American people in the dark.
dignity and respect. That's all we ask.
Well, no,
dignity
it's
and
not.
respect.
You're asking, is this
Please-
dignity and respect? Look at
Please
these people.
give
There's
dignity
a
and
pandemic.
respect to the people.
Let me ask you. There's a
I
pandemic.
respectfully ask you, sir.
There is a pandemic. Is this respecting the rights of these kids?
I ask you. Please
Are you
respect
respecting the
people.
rights of these
This
kids?
is not a zoo, sir. Please don't treat the people.
You're right, and this is a
As such.
dangerous place.
Please don't treat the
And
people
your
like
policies,
this. That's all I ask for
unfortunately,
you,
are
sir.
trying to hide them. I understand
That's
you
all
were
I ask
instructed
you.
when 18
I ask
senators
you
came
to
down
please
here.
respect the people, give them dignity
I
and
respect them, and I want to fix this situation.
We all want
and
to fix
the
it, sir. We
administration
don't
you're
want
working
this to
for is
happen
responsible for these conditions.
Please respect the people with dignity and respect,
And
sir.
I ask you to respect the people as well. This
I am
is
respecting
not.
you.
It's disgusting to watch somebody like Ted Cruz do this. It's disgusting to see both sides of this, right? And it's a reminder that they don't care. And when I'm saying today, I'm talking about the United States government. They will use this human crisis. We're talking about children here, to wage BS political war where nothing gets addressed, right? Ted Cruz was more than happy to see this happening when Donald Trump was president, and now he's talking about dignity and respect. And equally disgusting has been all of these liberals who last November were pounding the table about kids in cages, who are now bending over backwards to make excuses and to say things like, oh, well, what else do you expect us to do? Where should we put all these people? We can't just let them go, right?
Okay.
When there are plenty of activists who have been saying for a very long time, people on the ground, that there are better solutions than treating people in this kind of carceral, inhumane way.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that you can't just let them go, like why? I mean, often you can. And the other thing to point out is the people who run these facilities are making money for every body that's in there every night. And statutorily, they're not supposed to be in there for like much over 70 hours. They're often there for almost double that. And that's making somebody money every time.
And we're seeing people being, basically packed into facilities, to these pods that were supposed to hold somewhere between like 30 and 35 people, and then putting in literally hundreds of people into facilities that were designed to hold 30, right? And look, obviously these are complicated issues, right? But don't let people use that as an excuse, because what is happening right now, still to this day, despite the regime change, the administration change, is that they are still lining up children who came to this country. Again, this is different from even just immigration. These are people seeking asylum, and they are having children come into these facilities and face our judicial system without getting proper legal counsel or instruction, and putting on the weight on a 5, 6, 7-year-old who is unfamiliar with this country to explain why they are seeking asylum. It is inhumane and it is disgusting. This is obviously, there has to be a lot done to sort of deal with this amount of people coming into an area, right? But the fact is that we are still meeting them with the full weight of our judicial system to punish children. That is a choice. that there is, you can make excuses about Donald Trump, all that you want, but at a certain point, we would not have to process these kids if we weren't treating them like criminals. We would not have to, in fact, we're seeing that a lot of these children have people in the United States who could come and take care of them. But because they are so afraid of the fascist organization, ICE, and the Border Patrol will use that, to target them and to deport them, that people are not coming forward. There are solutions to this. This is something that we should be able to put our resources in to be able to deal with, to help people, again, who are seeking asylum, caused in parts of the world that have been destabilized by years and years and years of American anti-communist and anti-socialist movements, as well as United States trade policy and a global capital system, which pulls all the money and all the resources from around the world into the United States, and then tells people who have come here amidst incredible hardship, doors closed. We'll take your money, we'll take your goods, but you ain't coming here. Right? You need to go back to that place where we installed and have propped up right-wing criminal organizations. It's beyond despicable to see this today.
Yeah, I mean, you look over at Haiti, and you have Biden coming out with, stay in Haiti. Meanwhile, propping up Moise. Right, like just a microcosm there.
And I'll just say this again: like, Ted Cruz is a ghoul. The way that you're seeing people like him use this it shows an extreme lack of humanity. Should also have conversations with some of these liberals who have very quickly changed their tune about these inhumane conditions and are now uncomfortable using those terms because there's a Democrat in the White House, right? This is like, this is certainly a political thing. I'm like, at this point, I'm not even talking about like socialism versus capitalism. This is something that you need to get people to wake the hell up, and to not just look at the world in this insane red-blue lens that allows them to condemn atrocities at one point and then to defend them just a couple months later.
Yeah,
that needs to stop.
Because the crisis goes back to like basically around the time we were born, when they're really beefing up this border, right? Like this, until we get back to that, like to not treating the border like it's some sort of security threat and labor threat and white demographic threat, and treat it as something that needs to be crossed as seamlessly as possible for people.
And again, like, you make a hard border, you encourage people to come in and stay in the United States rather than work temporarily and leave, right? Because it's so hard to get over. Why would you want to put yourself through that every time? Right. Like, seriously, there are studies that show, like, once you militarize the border, you actually have a much larger population of people who stay permanently versus people who come temporarily. Again, not trying to give arguments to like the pigs who like are worried about the culture of the United States or anything like that, but like the fact is that you militarize the border, you only make these things more intense. But we're not even talking about immigration here. We're talking about asylum. And I think that that's really important not to fall into the trap, because obviously this always is going to blend into like immigration conversation, stuff like that. But what we're talking about right now is people seeking asylum. Before we move on, though, I wanted to, I sent it in the chat. I wanted to also just note that, these kind of things, is spectacle from Ted Cruz. But we're also seeing media spectacle right now around what's going on the border. The fact that people are talking about this right now is because 2 weeks ago, every Sunday show did a special on the border crisis. This is something that is being amplified by the media, and oftentimes in extremely sloppy ways. And we have this story here from the American Prospect, which is just pointing out one incidence of this. This is not an isolated event. This is something that's going on across the board, but it was spectacular in how overt this was. Did CNN air a staged migrant crossing of the Rio Grande River? And in the story, they are basically going through this video that aired on CNN and exposing the fact that a lot of stuff seems extremely off. One, typically traffickers don't bring across people across the river in large groups like this. And most notably, and the big smoking gun here, was all the traffickers are wearing ski masks, which you don't do. And not just because it's hot in South Texas. You don't do that because if you get picked up and you are very clearly marking yourself as a trafficker instead of just someone else in the crowd, you are facing much more severe consequences. Border Patrol constantly allows these kind of PR events to happen around the border so they can get captured on video, and then they typically get spread by right-wing outfits like the Blaze. This was one that got picked up by CNN. And the question here, and I'm not in a position to cast, to be definitive on this, is CNN so willing, to pursue ratings that they did something without vetting it, even though they were warned before they aired the segment that it was likely, a stage crossing? Or is CNN also trying to participate in this, in the system of creating the narrative, right? You gotta understand, Border Patrol and ICE in this country are frankly, and this is not to protect Biden from criticism or anything like that, are functionally rogue agencies, right? And they know that they're playing a war against the large parts of the U.S. government too, right? They know that they need to create and craft narratives here. So organizations like CNN should ask themselves about what kind of role they're playing in that. And liberals who are running cover for this administration's continuation of Trump's policies, continuations again too of Obama's policies as well, should really reckon with themselves and have a long think about the kind of inhumane systems that they're upholding.
It's just so disgusting, like the type of attitudes you're trying to instill in the entire population of the United States that gets your channel by showing crap like that and not, like having any sort of broad sense of, like, I don't know, that just fear mongering. I mean, thank you, Ted Turner.
Yeah. So we'll do more on this in the future, but we needed to, to address it because this is a very real thing. And this is one of the things, there's always we're worried about, the kind of return to normalcy, which means the return to people not caring about our inhumane policies.
Yeah. And, still just random stuff. Like I was listening to Will Menaker and Karina Moreno on Chapo talk about
that was really good.
These issues. Yeah. And like just little things that show like where the Democrats are, what they're afraid of, which is like you put in that no undocumented person can receive government benefits, right? Like which are already in the law. But they put in so Tom Cotton or whoever the fuck can't go on Fox News and say Democrats want to give, illegals benefits. It's not terribly good sign. And it requires more than just, a policy fix. It requires a complete relook at how we look at people crossing the border. And is that like something you need to like go grab your gun, or do you like welcome them? And there's like a bipartisan consensus toward the former right now, and hopefully it can be broken. But that's what we've been, given.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm worked up, and we have one more thing, and it's not a light one either. I'm sorry, y'all, but it's important, and there's a part of it that's funny in a kind of macabre sense, in a dark sense, which is we are living through a pandemic that is global.
First of all, sorry, it's nice to hear Ted Cruz say that for once. This is a pandemic.
You're right.
I was like, what the fuck? Where has this been? This energy, Ted. Anyway, sorry, not to...
it's like Ted Cruz is so extremely fake. That's the thing that's so transparent the more that you like listen to those guys talk or their interviews, is that half the stuff that they say is on the spot, whatever's going to give them the most moral weight. Right. And privately, these guys live in rich neighborhoods and they're very close to rich people, in the sense that like they're wearing the mask privately at the country club and stuff like that, but they might want to make a big deal about it for show, just like that moron Dan that we started the show up at the beginning too, to act like their country or something like that. But these guys function, they're the $150,000 a year set, and they act and think very similar to other folks, but they also have a job that requires them to ramp up the most reactionary rhetoric most of the time. And it's disgusting to be able to flip that switch, man. Is like, I know I'm not going to be in positions where that's going to be something I'm going to need, but boy, there's some deep like human soul work that those guys need.
Well, you see why they like abortion, pro-life politics, or like why this like sect of Save the Children, like because that is the ultimate moral high ground, right? Like save the babies. Anyway, we can move on to the final topic now. That's just I just wanted I can't hearing Ted Cruz say, but it's a pandemic. Like motherfucker, you just went to Cancun.
To protect his children on the airplane or whatever the hell. No, exactly.